I'll preface this by giving you a too long didn't read. This game is bad. That said, I believe I still hold the world record on time trials on hard mode for this game, which isn't that great of an accomplishment to tell people about, as I'd much rather talk about some epic speedrun of Mario 64 than completing all stages of Air Border 64 in record time. But all of that said, let's talk about the game itself. A quick Google search will tell you this. Air Border 64 is a futuristic hoverboard game that was released on the Nintendo 64 in 1998. It was published by Human Entertainment and saw releases in the Japanese and European markets. However, the project was canceled for a US release. Now, even though the Japanese version does have Japanese text, you can easily navigate it and the voiceovers are in English, so you can still play it. As we jump into the game, we're met with a pretty common play style that's to that of the snowboarding, Tony Hawk Pro Skater type of games on the Nintendo 64. In terms of control and approach to the game, the player will control a character on a board a few feet off the ground and live out their dream of being in Back to the Future Part 2, which was the best in my opinion, but that's another day. The game selections are extremely diverse and not just centered around tricks or time attacks. You have the trick mode, which is known as street mode and would be considered the primary area of the game, but you also have modes for practicing, time trials, for which I hold the records, free runs, multiplayer, and coin mode. All of these really encourage exploration of the levels and messing with all the various feature sets in each level. There are a plethora of moves that can be performed by each character to allow for stunts while in the air. Now, gravity, or lack thereof, is a primary mechanic of the game, and you can get massive air on your jumps, ride on the sides of buildings, and generally just bounce around all over the place. While this sounds awesome in theory, it doesn't really pan out to be that great. This game has issues with collisions and how it affects your rider and your overall experience. The controls would be best described as loose and wonky most of the time, unless you're going straight, obviously. This game's not as tight or as sharp as a 1080 snowboarding or Tony Hawk Pro Skater style of game, and it clearly shows in the presentation and gameplay. But with that being said, it is still one of my personal favorite games on the Nintendo 64, and it becomes more tolerable control-wise after a few runs through practice mode or time trials. Navigating sharp turns and jumping over some objects are the clear standout issues that I've personally found in my runs of the game. Lastly, the texture detail is pretty solid for a Nintendo 64 game, but it does have some noticeable frame rate drops all throughout the game, and everything I've researched on the game has noted the same issues. I've personally seen slowdown just at the start of a level, so take that into consideration with this game. Overall, it's not great, and yeah, I would label it a bad game, but there's some sort of charm about this game that continues to draw me in, whether it be the nostalgia from Back to the Future and living out the dream of owning a hoverboard, or the fact that I just like the obscurity of it. It's not a very common or well-known title for the Nintendo 64, mostly because it didn't release in America, and it didn't fare too well in the markets where it did release. I do encourage people to at least give the game a shot if you're into extreme sports style games, as it will fit in that genre relatively well. If you can find the import cheap, I definitely recommend picking it up. Otherwise, stick to an emulator with this one. That's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.